Today we're talking about the current state of the Royal Australian Mint and their new releases of coins. So for anyone that's unaware, the Royal Australian Mint have had some issues in the past. There have been a lot of bots and automated software that are quickly ordering up all of the hot new releases and then selling them for a big profit. A lot of people have complained, and I'm surprised that the Mint have actually acknowledged that and seem to be taking measures to address this. So the latest release of coins, the Women's FIFA World Cup, as well as the Mob of 30 coins, were incredibly popular. There was also a coloured Desert Scorpion, which was an issue specifically for a Hong Kong dealer called LPM, and as a result, the Royal Australian Mint had a tiny amount, and from what I gather, none of the dealers that I spoke with had any access to them whatsoever. So it was very difficult to get your hands on, and I think that often there's a little bit of confusion with those commissioned jobs. So something that's going specifically to the overseas market. A lot of people are scratching their heads wondering why they're not able to get their hands on it and why they're so scarce. That is the reason. So the bulk of them will be going over to LPM and they'll be distributed through them. So it can be a little confusing. I can appreciate as a collector how it gets a little confusing. As a dealer, it's just as hard for me, I can assure you, knowing where to go, how to get things, and how to... One of the hardest things is how to get enough to service the demand. And I must confess, I was a little naive. I thought that I might have a chance at servicing a few more customers this time around with this hot release. But my tiny allocation that I was able to get hold of was wiped out immediately, and I must apologize for that. Hopefully moving forward, I can get more of these coins from the Royal Australian Mint and start to build up the business to a point where I'm able to better service the collectors. So what have the Royal Australian Mint done? It looks like in updating their terms of service, they're putting in place some regulations and things like that to hopefully reduce the prevalence of bots and automated ordering software, which is a step in the right direction and a big win for the collectors. Now, I must also acknowledge that a lot of people seem to think that it's the Royal Australian Mint's job to not only produce and distribute these coins, but also act as somewhat of an industry watchdog and take action whenever they see things happening that I think are not only beyond their control, but beyond their scope of responsibility. So I must admit that I think it's quite impressive that they're taking these actions to hopefully make provide the collector with a better experience overall. But what happened this time? The website was not taking orders in this instance, so all orders were going through the phone or directly at the Mint. And I saw some photos on Facebook of people lining up in what appeared to be 0 or minus a few degrees Celsius weather. And again, I've got to take my hat off to those collectors that were enthusiastic enough to get out there and get in the cold. And hopefully everyone that was lining up there managed to get what they were after. If you were there, let me know in the comments. Did you get what you were after? And what was the experience like? But for those ordering over the phone, it sounds like a lot of them were calling hundreds and hundreds of times and still were unable to get through and get what they wanted. This in itself is disappointing, but I must also admit that I used to work in the Philatelic Bureau, the stamp department for Australia Post, and that was not uncommon when there was a popular release that the phones would light up and you would be left with a lot of disappointed and upset collectors. Ultimately though, I think this is part of the industry that we're in now, and the landscape is changing quite a bit. And I think sometimes it's important to bear in mind that when there are really popular releases like this, it's a sign that there is a lot of interest in coin collecting. And for those that are really upset or really turned off coin collecting in general, you can take a look at industries like the stamp industry. There's releases every other week, and as far as I'm aware, with the stamps that Australia Post produce, there aren't really any that are that hard to get hold of. So there are plenty of options out there, hobbies that produce regular issues with all different themes and things like that. There are ways that you can get hold of every release ever. But those, in my personal opinion, stamp collecting, I have a stamp collection myself, so I'm not belittling it at all. It's not quite as exciting or as rewarding as coin collecting, in my opinion. So just bear in mind, when you miss out on releases like these, there are always going to be future releases. This was a bit of a delayed release from the Royal Australian Mint, but generally it's every month there's new releases coming, which is a nightmare for dealers to keep up with and keep track of everything that's coming out. Between the Royal Australian Mint and the Perth Mint, there's always something new coming down the line. So just bear that in mind and try not to get too upset if you're not able to get onto the coins that you're after. So there you go. I just wanted to highlight the current setup with the Royal Australian Mint. It does sound like things are progressing in the right direction, and hopefully they'll be able to offer a better service moving forward. And who knows, with any luck, maybe they'll get in touch with Thompson's Coins and I'll become an authorized distributor, and then you'll be able to get all your Royal Australian Mint needs in one handy spot. But all good things in time. We'll wait and see, but I'll do my best. But I'd love to hear your opinions. Are there any ways that you would improve the service? Because it's really easy to stand back, and I must admit there are times where I've done that. You stand back and it's easy to be critical of a service like the Royal Australian Mint, or a business, an organisation. But what would you do differently? Let me know in the comments. Do you have any suggestions or recommendations? And, maybe one day I'll collate them all and submit them. Who knows? But let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much for watching.